Hi, everybody. Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick intro. Quacy Smith is a lifelong Democrat, a native of Blythe, California, has a deep connection to the 9th Congressional District of Arizona, which shares a border with his hometown. His early years were marked by distinguished service in the United States Marine Corps as a police officer and as a federal investigator for the United States EEOC. In addition to his public service, Quacy has dedicated over 25 years to pastoral ministry. He is also the founding managing partner of Smith & Green Attorneys at Law. As a practicing attorney, he has litigated cases in both state and federal courts. He is not only a respected litigator, but also a highly sought-after public speaker. His voice of wisdom and influence has been instrumental in times of national unrest and uncertainty. Quacy's academic achievements include a doctorate in divinity from Feltus Theological Seminary and a Juris Doctorate from Phoenix School of Law. He is an active member of several legal associations, including the American Bar Association, National Bar Association, Arizona Bar, and also Maricopa County Bar Association. Furthermore, he is a member of the Phi Alpha Delta, an internationally acclaimed law fraternity. For more than 17 years, Quacy has made his home in the West Valley of Phoenix, where he lives with his wife, Tiffany, and their children. Well, let's give a real warm Democrats of Greater Tucson welcome to Quacy Smith.
Thank you.
Let's see those hands up. There you go. That's right. Hey, there we go. There we go. Well, welcome.
Thank you, Joseph. It's good to be here with you fine folks from Tucson, the southern parts, I say southeastern parts of the state. And it's always great to be with like-minded Democratic voters. So thank you for having me today.
Well, I think there was some discussion with Kathleen Harris, just how your congressional district is set up. I guess it has to be one of the biggest, if not in the state, in the country, maybe.
Sure, it is. It is a very, and folks, thank you all for taking time out of your schedule to come in to this today. And I hope some of what I say to you today will be informative, not only just informative about our race, but informative about really what's at stake for our nation. And I just highlight a few things. And not only what's at stake for our nation, what's at stake for our state in this election. I know we hear it every election cycle. This is the most consequential election of our lifetime. I think the folks that are saying it this time, I think there's a great degree of truth to it this time. This election matters greatly. I think it's more important than any other election, at least that I've participated in my lifetime. And I'm 28 plus shipping and handling. And so it's quite a consequential election. The 9th Congressional District of Arizona literally spans the western part of the entire state. It spans 4 counties: Maricopa, Yuma, La Paz, all of La Paz County, and Mojave County. A good chunk of Yuma County, and really a good chunk of Maricopa County. If you think about it from just a geographical, if I could use landmarks that you would kind of recognize. So the Cardinal Stadium, where the Cardinals play, that's in the district. A chunk of Glendale in that area, that's in the district. And then it kind of shoots up along the majority of Surprise, which is one of those fast-growing cities, that's in the district. Almost all of Goodyear is in the district. All of Buckeye is in the district, and everything west of Buckeye. So Tonopah, all of that stuff when you're headed toward California, all of that is in the district. So all of those smaller rural cities out off the I-10 corridor, Salome, Ehrenberg, Quartzsite, all of that stuff is in the district. Again, all of La Paz, that means Parker is in the district. And you start going up into Mojave area, Lake Havasu, Bullhead City, Kingman, all of those northern cities up there, all the way up as far as Meadview and Colorado City, up to the Nevada corner where Nevada corners in. So we kind of border with 4 states: Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, California, and Mexico down at the bottom, down in Yuma. So all the way far south as Somerton, San Luis, Yuma, all of that is in the district. In fact, if you look at our campaign logo, you'll see a part of it. The left side of it is as stars in it. All of that area, that stars in our campaign logo, all of that is a part of the 9th Congressional District, as Joe alluded to. It is the second, I think it's the second largest in the state. I think maybe District 1, maybe a little bit bigger, a smidget bigger, and it's certainly one of the largest in the state. This is only the second election cycle for the 9th Congressional District. Of course, the Republican-led state house here kind of gerrymandered out, if you will. Well, that's what it was, gerrymandered out a district for Paul Gosar to win in. And I would invite all of you to consider this. When you have to start gerrymandering out a district for a specific candidate so that they can win, that is a clear indication of that candidate's vulnerability. They're vulnerable. And so you have to carve out a scenario whereby which you believe, and it's only a belief that they have, that person can't lose in. And that's what they literally have done with Paul Anthony Gosar for the last election cycle. Last election cycle, 2022, he ran unopposed. No Democrat challenged him. No independent challenged him. And again, really no formidable Republican challenged him in that. They just kind of gave it to him. Before that, it was a part of the 4th district. And again, this gerrymandering happened. So this is only the second election with the 9th Congressional District in it. From what I'm being told, and time will bear this out, that the population has grown so much in Arizona that they will be adding another seat to the state. So there'll be 10 congressional districts. But right now, there are 9 congressmen. This is the 9th one. Paul Anthony Gosar is that candidate. I live in that district. And so I have lived. I've never lived any further east than Avondale, and only lived there for a year. Most of my time that I've been in Arizona, and I've been here since 2004, 2005, maybe, in Maricopa County, has been lived on the west side of the state. So unlike Mr. Gosar, I'm not a transplant candidate. I didn't come down here from Prescott like he did and rent an apartment that I never stay in. You know, I'm not a transplant candidate. I've been a west sider my entire life. And again, I've been here since the early 2000s, have no plan. But my children go to school in that district, public schools, might I add, in that district. I've served in that district, in the community and everywhere else. Prior to, you want me to just keep going, Joseph, or you have specific questions?
Yeah, you have 30 minutes, so
okay.
You got plenty of time.
Okay, thank you. Prior to that, I am a native. I'm a California native. I was born in Palm Springs. However, I was raised in Blythe, California, which y'all know where Blythe is. It's that place where you stop and use the bathroom on the way to LA.
That is so true.
That station. That's what it is. There are actually people that live there. Human beings actually live there. I'm one of them. In fact, my mother still lives there to this day. My mother lives in Blythe, California. It is a great, small little town. I grew up there. Blythe is a very conservative. In fact, if you want to know what conservative looks like, go to Blythe, California. It's a very small, conservative town, but it's a very diverse town as well. You know, and diverse in the sense of color, diverse in the sense of haves and have-nots. You grow up in there and you see that diversity of the haves and the have-nots. I grew up on the have-nots side of the town. So I say that simply to point one, again, the whole rural element, the farming communities, the migrants issues, the border issues, the all of that stuff. I've lived with that my whole life. I'm no novice to that at all. You know, I could literally sit down and write a book about growing up in that environment when the Republicans, for political points, you know, bring up issues of, well, you know, that they're migrants or they're illegals are coming over and killing people and all of that stuff. Well, I've lived in that environment. And there is a story that is not being told concerning migrant workers and whatnot. And I think the story that is being told is being conflated in bloviation and bombast and bluster and all of that stuff. You know, our Republican friends, particularly the extremists, have a problem with overstating their positions, and they're just over talking stuff that's just, there's no facts to support all of that stuff. And we can drill down to some of that stuff here shortly. But I grew up in that small conservative community. My father died when I was 11 years old. I was raised by a single mother on welfare and food stamps my entire life. Every meal I ate as a child was off of welfare and food stamps. Every single meal I ate as a child was off of welfare and food stamps. My father died of sickle cell anemia, healthcare costs. After he passed away, I know what it's like to go bankrupt because of healthcare. The only bankruptcy my mother ever filed was because of the mounting medical bills that she had from my father's passing and trying to raise us, you know, on a fixed income, literally a fixed income. I know the embarrassment of going to a grocery store and having to put a food stamp on the counter, and you want to do better and you can't do better. But let me say it in some stronger terms. Those same public benefits that some of the folks in Congress are trying to take away, those same government benefits that a little child like me that grew up in the hood needed and desperately needed to grow up. And that little kid that ate off of welfare and food stamps is now the Democratic candidate for the United States Congress in one of Arizona's largest districts. So nobody can tell me that food stamps and welfare, when needed, doesn't work. You all, I am living proof that it works when it's necessary, when we allow the systems of our government to work, when it's all of us for the Lord, when we lift up and raise up the bottom and the middle class, that the systems of our government work. And I'm proof of that. After my father passed away, we had men, and frankly, they were, you know, police officers. You know, they weren't Black men, they were white men, many of them now Republicans, you know, Trump supporters, that came along and undergirded my mother and made sure that I stayed out of trouble, stayed out until they signed me up for the Explorer program. It's equivalent to the Boy Scouts, but they work with the police departments and our Explorer post. And that's where my introduction to law enforcement and all of that stuff came from. I spent time as a volunteer firefighter, went on to the Explorer post and whatnot. Later on, graduated high school, didn't do that well, you know, battling things that young people battle with, depression, all that stuff. Ended up graduating high school at 1.9 grade point average. In fact, I don't think I graduated. I think they just kind of put me out because they got tired of me. My math teacher told me I talk too much. God, I wish I could talk to her now. at least I got people listening now. People want me to talk now. But she told me I talk too much. But they graduated. I remember sitting in the stands at my high school graduation. My grade point average was so low that I didn't get to participate in the ceremony, whatnot. I sat in the stands where all of my friends were graduating. I remember coming down to this field, tears running down my face, wondering like, well, what do I do with the rest of my life from now? I wasn't getting into college. None of these things were happening for me. And it was like, what do you do with what's left? And I never forget my principal, Michael Gilmore. Look, I said, well, Mr. Gilmore, if I could go back, I sure would change a lot of things. And he looked at me that day and he said, son, you can't go back and change anything, but you can go forward and you can change everything. And he took his big hand, wiped tears out of my face, said, you go enjoy your friends tonight, but tomorrow you get up and you change things. And that was a glimmer of hope. And I think that's the thrust of America today, that you get up and you go change things. If life hands you a bunch of lemons, you know, they used to say, make lemonade. Well, hold on. That's good if you want lemonade. But if you don't want lemonade, you hand life the lemons back and you go pick you some oranges and get you some orange juice if that's what you want. You take this life with it, and I'm living proof that it can happen when you make it what it needs to be. The Democratic Party, has always been the thrust of change. I don't care what anybody says. They can kind of rewrite history all that they want to. But minority communities and welfare kids like myself are in a better place. It hasn't been because of Republican policies. It's been because of Democratic policies and Democratic principles. And you don't get to rewrite history and presume to take credit for something that a party who has always been at the tip of the spear of change for better has done. And I'm a product of Democratic policies. I went on that 1.9 graduate went into the United States Marine Corps, served his country valiantly, was promoted multiple times meritoriously, because when life gives you an opportunity to make change, you make it. That's the opportunity that we have in front of us this election. It's the opportunity to make change. You all, if we Dems get out and do what we know we need to do and put our heart, our effort, our money, our time behind it for the next 92 days or 90, however many days it is left, it's about 92, 93 days left. If we put our heart, our effort, our energy, and our mind, this is going to be the biggest story of change that has been written in this country, that says the people won't change. There is something that the people are rejecting. And it shouldn't just be us. It should be people across the board that reject some of this extremism that is being threatened in our to us. And so went to the Marine Corps, served valiantly in the Marine Corps, was promoted, went on from there, started doing ministry work, ended up going to theology school. They opened up an opportunity for me to go to school in the United States Marine Corps through the MESEP program. The first college with a 1.9 grade point average, the first college campus that I stepped foot on was San Diego State University, because of the promises of this nation. So I get extremely insulted when I hear people mention of DEI hires and all of that stuff, and when they try to remove affirmative action. I have a college degree. I have a law degree. I have employees in this office that I'm sitting in right now in a law firm that I own, that has been able to service the community, that have been able to support young women who going through pregnancy, didn't lay them off, let them keep their jobs. And I did that because affirmative action let me into a university. I didn't get in because of my grades. I got in because somebody realized the environment that I grew up in, and they said the young man needed an opportunity. I'm on the ballot now because someone looked and said, we have to level the playing field for people that grew up in less than favorable circumstances. And so, in my opinion, while they're talking about DEI hires, the only DEI hires that I have seen in the last several years has been Don Jr., Erica, and Ivanka. Those are the DEI hires that I've seen. If we want to talk about DEI, let's talk about Don, Eric, and Ivanka, because they should have been nowhere near the White House. They should have been nowhere near the Senate. How in the world do you go from selling high heels on Monday to being a national security advisor on Wednesday? Somebody explain that to me. If we want to talk about DEI, let's pull back all of the extra stuff and let's talk about what it really is. And so and I get fired up about this stuff because we can do better as a nation, and we should do better as a nation. And so again, went back to my small town, served as a police officer there, and the resume goes. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. The resume goes on. I say all of that to summate it. You all, I've had a life of service. I've had a life of service. I came off the campaign trail, went out of town, came off the campaign trail. Monday, I was standing at the side of a young girl who, with all of the stuff about women, reproductive rights and stuff, which I firmly believe in, that went through this with the pregnancy, and sit on the side with this 18-year-old girl whose 10-day-old, 14 or 10 days at the time, 14-day-old child that passed away. That's where I was. That's where I was. 2 days, the day after that, I was in a car headed to Yuma to meet with voters and go to town hall. Got back in town that Friday, was on radio interviews, all of that stuff. Saturday, day before yesterday, was sitting at the church. 2 funerals. One started at 11, the next one that started at 3 o'clock. Then sat down with young people whose parents had passed away and had to deal with them, to wake up back here to deal with employees back on the campaign trail. I have had a life of service. Someone asked me the other day, what do you bring different to the table as far as being a political candidate? Well, the biggest thing I bring is the right heart, the right mindset, understanding that it's not about a political career, it's about the people. And when our politics become more about partisanship and about personal preferences and personal agendas, and it ceases to be about the people, we must send those people home. When our politics are not focused on the people, not the fewer of us, but the more of us. Someone asked me the question in Yuma a couple of days ago, why did I run for office? A whole lot of things I could say about that, but let me point out to a couple of things. Why would I run for office? Because I'm not running for office because I seek a political career. I still don't seek a political career. If that happens, it happens. I seek to serve people and to make sure that people have a voice at the table that's responsible, that's reliable, that's not for sale, and that gets it, that have lived the human experience. I'm running for political office in Arizona's 9th Congressional District. Number one, because I firmly believe that people don't turn Black. They don't turn Black. I've never turned, I didn't turn Black. I was Black my entire life. I don't believe that just because a woman now is at the top of the Democratic Party, that she should be judged by a more strict set of rules than some of the other male counterparts who have come along before her. I don't believe that a woman should have to have a debate with politicians who have no personal interest in about what's happening in her own body. I don't believe it. And you have to have someone there that will go there and sound the alarm and say, there are some spaces that politics have creeped into that we don't need to be in. There are common sense and reasonable. You go into Congress because there's no sense of pointing the finger at either party about what's happened at the border. Everybody has failed. Everybody has passed the buck, and nobody has passed the bill. Particularly Republicans shouldn't have much to say about this, because if the bipartisan bill that was presented to them several months back would have been agreed to and passed, the border would be secure. The border would be secure, and comprehensive immigration reform would have been started. Why am I running for Congress? Because I don't think we need a $500 bill. And I don't think if we had a $500 bill, out of all the people on planet Earth, I don't think Donald Trump's name or face should be on the front of a $500 bill. And our congressman in Arizona's 9th Congressional District, do y'all believe this? Forwarded a bill to the House to make a $500 bill and wanted to put Donald Trump's name and face on the front of it. There has been no appreciable work that this man has done. I did the math. I'm a trial lawyer. I'm a trial lawyer. I practice real cases in real court, federal and state. And I did the research. I couldn't find any appreciable work that this man has done in the last 6-7 years. And he's been in Congress for 10 or 11. You haven't done anything. In fact, just a few weeks ago, he was at a Social Security roundtable and he slipped up and said, yeah, I got to get reelected because I got to make sure that my retirement and Social Security. So you're running to make sure that you have something. That's not what we do. We service the people. We don't make statements like, oh, we need more white people in the Army. This man is on the record saying this. We need more white. Well, are Blacks and Latinos and Asians and natives not good enough? Or why does it have to be? Some of the things that have come out of this man's mouth, I think they don't have the best presidential candidate at all. In fact, I will say this. I think that Vice President Harris, on her worst day, is better than the Republican candidate is on his best day. Those are just my personal opinions. I think this party owes a debt of gratitude to President Biden because he did exactly what we needed him to do for the last 4 years, and that is stave off what I believe is the biggest problem in America, and that is the extremism on the right side of this of our politics. Paul Gosar is a part of that, and the 9th District needed someone that could put up a challenge to him, that would be formidable to him, that could attract Democrats, particularly independents, because the win in 9th Congressional District is with independents. Let's be clear about it. It's with independents. If the Dems have to do what we have to do, and the win is with the independent voters. And frankly, we are doing that. I've been in meetings, been in sessions where we intentionally brought together a group of independents, Republicans, and Democrats. And if there were 12 Republicans in the room, and some of them right up front, MAGA folks, they tell you right now, I'm MAGA, and I just came here to hear what you have to say. And if you put 12 of them in a room, by the time we're done speaking to them, 9 of them will say, we're voting for you. I've heard from folk down in Yuma and the Paz and other areas that said, we tried to write your name in on the Republican ballot, but obviously it wouldn't count in a Republican primary, because even Republicans get it, that it's time to move the country back to the middle. We find out what we can agree on so we can break up this political gridlock. I'm an unashamed Democrat. I've been a lifelong Democrat. Somebody's asked me before, well, why didn't you just switch to independent? You would have won the race. I said, because I don't believe in playing political games with people. I'm a Democrat. I've been one. I'm not going to Kirsten Sinema anybody. I am a Democrat, and we will do what we need to do to win this race. We have to stop just not voting for people because they don't. We could do better as a nation. And so I have, a very unique race I have to run because of the layout of the electorate in that area. But we are certainly on the ground seeing the effect of what's happening. Because it's so diverse. You have Maricopa County, which is very modernized, it's inner city. I mean, the fastest growing cities in the state, some of them are right there in my district. They have a different set of problems than the folks out in the rural areas have, La Paz. And you have to have someone with the bandwidth, with the character, with the capacity to address all of that. The problems in Mojave County are distinctly different from those in Yuma and those in La Paz and those in Maricopa. But the pathway to victory is very clear. And obviously we need the support from everywhere. And I will say this, and then I know there's some time for some questions. I'll give the mic back to you, Joseph. But Paul Gosar cannot be just a problem for the folks in 9th Congressional District. He's my congressman. And it irks me to say that. I won't take my 6-year-old to meet you because of some of the stuff that has come out of your mouth, and that's a problem. I won't take my 6-year-old to meet you, and that's a problem. But he is not just a problem for our district. He has to be a problem for everybody in this state. He has to be a problem for everybody in this nation. Somebody like Paul Gosar is somebody that every Democrat across the board should reject, and every Democrat across the board should be in full support. Time, money, effort, energy, and making sure that whoever's willing to stand up to this guy and challenge this guy, we get behind him, because he is the most vulnerable Republican candidate in our state for a number of reasons that I could go. He's just, when you have to gerrymander a district for him, that's clear proof that they're even worried about him, because there is an issue. And so if we do what we're supposed to do, it is my full hope and intention that Paul Gosar goes home after November the 6th. Why did I run? Because tomorrow matters. I'm going to wake up November the 6th, and I want to be able to look in the mirror and know that we have done the job that is necessary to send people home that don't need to be there. I ran because tomorrow matters for me, my children, for your children, and for you.
Wow, great job. Quick question, is there a media center in your district? I mean, is there one city that has some newspapers, radio, television? I'm having a hard time picturing one.
Yeah, there are, and I don't have the exact names of Kathleen and our team of folks, and we have just the most wonderful team of folks. But there are several media centers. We've been on the news. Even you'd be surprised. A lot of conservative, they know that Paul Gosar is a problem, and they're looking for a safe off ramp. I've done so many interviews on conservative, and literally they'll tell you, man, whew, you got me. You know what I mean?
It's
you know,
almost it's almost like watching a situation comedy with him,
yeah, yeah, it is.
and he's the star.
And he's the star. It is. And so there are several out in those areas. You know, they're smaller. And then, of course, the Maricopa County side, obviously, you got all of the major news networks. The majority of the voters in our district are in Maricopa County.
I'm just thinking that you go all the way to Yuma. I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, yeah. We were just on Yuma Radio. I forget the name of the network. Kathleen might be able to chime in there, but just Yuma Radio, Yuma TV. We were on Telemundo. The other. I mean, it's quite an ordeal.
Oh, good. Kathleen's already put on your website. Appreciate that, Kathleen. And let's see. Lillian Fox has a question. Lillian, what do you have for us?
I was going to ask for the website to donate. You are a fabulous public speaker. I assume Gosar is not going to debate you anywhere?
Well, he hasn't. In fact, we had Miss Lily, we had it was funny. This is funny. We had an event scheduled up in Meadview. This is way up. I mean, you know, this is, I think Donald Trump and them may live up there the part of the year. This is like real bad. If there were 3 Democrats in the room, I was 2 of them. And Mr. Gosar was supposed to show up there. And this event had been planned for months. And we're leaving, headed up to Meadview. And the evening before the event, all of a sudden, well, Mr. Gosar can't show up because he found out that I was actually going to show up. And so he's been avoiding me like the plague. But on September the 25th, the Committee for Clean Elections, I think I got the date right. Kathleen will let me know. But I think they've set up all of these debates with all of the congressional candidates throughout the state. And he's supposed to be there, Ms. Lillian, but I hope he shows up. Oh, that could be a wonderful day. I hope
Me
he
too.
does.
I would love to see it.
Well, that's great. Let's see. Nothing in the chat as far as any questions go. Do we have any people raising your hand? Any questions?
I
You have another one, Lillian?
Yeah, I just wanted a clarification. Did you say the majority of the voters are in Maricopa County for your district?
Yes, ma'am. And let me see, I have the number. So in the district, there's 490,000 voters, estimate. Over 290,000 of those voters are in Maricopa County. So a little under 2/3, or give or take, are in Maricopa. More than half, I should say, is in Maricopa County.
Okay. Well, we've got some other hands up. Pat, you have the floor.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Very nice
You're
to
a
meet
wonderful speaker. You tell a great story. My question is, in your life of service, what has been your greatest contribution?
It's been to the everyday needs of people. I think my biggest contribution has been being able to hear people and respond. And can I be honest? And that's one of the biggest things that scares me, if I could use that, if I could be candid, even about winning this seat, because I'm the guy where, Ms. Pat, if you called me at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, this is happening, I would get out of my bed and come to you, congressman and all, to send a call to me. I want to talk to this person's in my district. I want to talk to them. Because people are people, and the ability to be there, to understand, to meet people where they are, to not be judgmental, to not be excessive, but be accessible to people. And I think that's been the biggest contribution, to literally to be able to represent people, whether it's in a court of law, whether it's them dealing with the death of a loved one, or even as a police officer in the military, just to being able to represent people. And that's what I love the most, being there for the people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, way to go, Pat. Appreciate that. And James Stevenson has a question. So
I'm
James,
on.
go
I
ahead.
always have to find the unmute. I just want to sincerely thank you for taking up the mantle of this race and the challenge of this district. I happen to know somebody who's very well connected in the agricultural community in Yuma. And I'm wondering, have you been able to make any connection with the farmer community? Have you found that connection? It's really important in Yuma. Your service as a Marine, thank you so much, is very, very significant in Yuma, as you're probably aware. But how about agriculture? Have you been able to look and try and get a foothold in addressing that community and let them know that you're actually listening to what their concerns are?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. James, for the question. The short answer to that is yes, and that is something that we are continuing to solidify. Again, as I mentioned just the other day, we were just down in Yuma. Well, 2 or 3 days ago, we were just down in Yuma for a couple of days and connecting with that community. A couple of the gentlemen down there that we spoke to are from that community, that agricultural core. I don't think the nation really realizes that if you're eating a salad, your lettuce more than likely came from Yuma. I cooked some cabbage last night, and might I say it was pretty good. I cooked some cabbage and a roast last night. I actually got to, get in the kitchen and dabble a little bit, and it was pretty good. But that cabbage, the head of cabbage, it comes from down in Yuma, and I don't think people really realize that. And so, to the question, absolutely yes. And those are roads that we're continuing to make, and it plays into our need for immigration reform, sensible immigration reform, and get back off some of this rhetoric and stuff. I heard Paul Gosar said the other day, in fact, well, I wasn't there, but we had a couple of, folks that were in this Social Security meeting that he was talking about. And it's amazing. And now all of a sudden he's interested in Social Security. And we all know why. It's because it's close to an election and he's just trying to, say what he needs to say. But some of the claims that he made is that the immigrants and down in the illegal immigration and whatnot has gutted the Social Security. I said, well, come on, that's laughable. These folks, in fact, they contribute to Social Security, but they don't even get to get anything out of it. And then he went as far as out to say as well, and inflation has killed her. If inflation over the last couple of years has killed Social Security, then Social Security was dead before inflation ever got to it. If inflation has the ability to kill it, I mean, this stuff just doesn't make good sense. And so that community down there, particularly the migrant workers, the farm workers, they are critical to the economy in that area. They're critical to the state's economy, and having inroads with them are critical. We have made some connections. We'll continue to make connections. If you have any suggestions or folks that we need to be in contact with, please let us know, because we have to spend a lot of time in a lot of places over the next 92 days.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to check into it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, James. And Bill Swan has a question.
Yeah, hi. Sorry I was late, and thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you, sir.
You do have a great story. You should have a big party and call it the Cabbage Party. I'd actually come to that with you.
I took the cabbage.
Yeah, but a lot of us are doing some work for John and Kevin, two guys running to try to flip Arizona Blue in LD 17, one for the House, one for the Senate. And they've been spending the last 3 months knocking on Republican doors as a couple of centrist, really bright, smart guys. And I got to tell you, what they're hearing is kind of like what you're hearing. The Republicans down here and off to both sides of Tucson are looking for hope. That's the message. They're trying to give these guys hope. And they're listening. They just open up their ears when John or Kevin start talking, because they just want to know what their troubles are and what they need help with. And my question is that when you're on a doorstop and you ask voters what they're thinking about and what they need in Arizona, what are you hearing the most? Top three.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope would be number one. You're absolutely right. They want hope. one. Number two, they want to get away from this extreme stuff.
Exactly.
Most Republicans are as nauseated with the extremism as us Democrats are. But what they understand, and it's something that our campaign has argued from its inception, that you can't defeat extremism with extremism.
That's right.
Everybody wants everything to be moderated. Turn the fire down before we burn up the whole house. And Dems, independents especially, and persuadable Republicans that haven't, quote unquote, drunk the juice. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that in a harsh manner, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Yep. They want that. So hope, they literally want to get away from some of the extremism. And thirdly, I think they want a chance to reset themselves. Mr. Bill, one of the most persuasive statements that I have made to a Republican, because some of them believe what they believe, you know what I mean? I've understood that even though they will consider you or vote for you as a candidate, it doesn't mean that they agree with all of your positions and platforms. They're to distance themselves from that. And so what I've been able to tell, one of the most persuasive arguments that I've been able to make with Republicans, MAGA ones too, tell them, listen, I know for this moment, I am the better choice for you for this election. It might not be for the next election. In fact, and I go to the extreme and tell them, I know I'm a Democrat, and that's not going to change. And I know you don't want to vote for me. You'd rather vote for a Republican, but I'm safe space for you for this election so that you can distance yourself from that and then go find your guy. Go find a Republican that got some good sense. Of course, I don't say it like that, but y'all know what I mean. Go find a Republican that's got some good sense and put him up. And you know what I tell him? And guess what? If he beats me next election, I'm going to say, thank you for letting me serve for 2 years. I'm going to pack up my bags and I'm going to go back to Buckeye and finish raising my family. I can tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to deny an election result. I'm not going to file a 1,500 lawsuits like Carrie Lake. I'm going to pack up my bags and say, folks, thank you for letting me serve you, and go home. And when they hear that kind of language, they get it. So again, I think those would be the top 3 things, Mr. Bill. Excellent question. Excellent.
Okay. Bill Shipp has a question. Bill, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, Quacy, first of all, thank you very much for joining us today. I really enjoyed your story a lot. And I just want to tell you that I've always felt a connection, really a special connection to Blythe, California. I'm a Texan by birth, and but my dad was in the Army Air Force and is stationed in Blythe at the end of World War II. And it's quite possible I was conceived in Blythe. But anyway, I just wanted to mention my Blythe connection. Thank you, and I wish you the best in your campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. And you know what, you sound like a Blythe, because there was an old air station up there. I'm dropping the name of it, but way up on the hill. The hangar is still up there. I don't think they use it for anything, but yeah. Fellow Blythonian, you probably are.
Absolutely, that sounds great. Susie Anderson has a question.
Hi, thank you, Quacy. It's just wonderful to have you here. You're such a breath of fresh air for that district. What I was wondering is, do you know what the ethnic makeup is of your district? Why Paul Gosar does so well? How many, Hispanics, Blacks, Asians, do you have there? I'm sure you have a lot of Hispanics who come for the farm work, but if they're not citizens, they can't vote. So tell me about your district.
Yes, ma'am. So as far as I don't have this, but thank you for a question. Excellent question. I don't have the demographics as far as racial demographics in front of me right now, but I can get that information. Maybe Kathleen or somebody can put it in the chat. But specifically to your another portion of that question is, what is the makeup of the district, or specifically, why is it that Paul Gosar does so well? Paul Gosar does so well, again, because I mentioned early on, because of the way the district has been gerrymandered. The Republican stronghold in the, well, let me say it, and it's predominantly white. The makeup is obviously predominantly white. However, it is diversifying because we're getting a lot of bleeding folks that come in from California, Oregon, Washington, the West Coast. They come as far as the West Side and they stay. They don't come all the way to the East Side of town, to the majority of them to Chandler, Gilbert, that area. They come west and they stay there. This Republican stronghold in that district particularly is Mojave County. Mojave County, there is about 130 or 40,000 votes registered voters up there. At least half of those folks up there are Republican. That's where the stronghold, and then the other half of it is independents, Democrats. That's up in Mojave County. So that's where the other big chunk of it is. The other districts are a little closely aligned between Dems, independents, and then versus Republicans. So that's why he does so well. But you have to put does so well in a vacuum. Let me give an example. Like last election cycle, 2022, there are 490,000 folks that could vote in the election. Okay. Last election cycle, Paul Gosar only got 192,000 votes. 192,000 votes. Unopposed now, 192,000 votes out of more than 490,000 voters. Do you all see the vulnerability here? If you only get 192,000 votes out of 490, there are 300,000 people that did not vote for you for some reason or another. Let me put that in perspective. Out of the 192,000 votes that he did receive, remember, out of Republican voters, there are 213,000 Republican voters, 213,000 Republican voters. So that literally means that all of Republican voters did not vote for you. In Maricopa County this primary election, out of the 47,000 or whatever his votes that he have, 51,000 votes that were cast, he got 43,000 of votes, 46,000 of votes. So about 7,000 in the primary Republican voters out of 51,000 did not vote for him. That's more than 10% of the Republican votes in Maricopa County last week that did not vote for him. So that's where that vulnerability is. But the reason why he does so well, Ms. Anderson, is because that Mojave County stronghold up there. So our strategy, we're going to win in Mojave County? Probably not. But we have to lessen the loss, for lack of better words. Dems, independents, lockstep, and lessen the loss. That literally means in Mojave County, if we can get 1 or 2 out of every 10 Republicans to either not vote for him or to vote for us, we're fine. And we are seeing better than that on the ground right now. Did that kind of help answer some of the question? He's never had a formidable challenger. He hasn't had somebody that can take him to task. And frankly, our party and our people put the effort, energy, and resources behind pushing a good candidate over the line. That's why he's done so well.
So, and Mojave County, for those who might not know, is Bullhead City, Lake Havasu City. I'm surprised it's that big of a county, but I guess there's been a lot of growth since I worked it. So, okay, we have Lillian Fox has her hands up. Lillian, what do you have?
Yeah, I liked your response about what you said about the border issues, that nobody has done anything about or has done well on the border issues. The Republicans can't blame us, but what specific, and I'm not big on the border issues personally, but what specific things do you believe need to be done about the border and that you would support?
Sure. So I think excellent question. And again, I think the border, I think the border is an issue. I think the border is being made a bigger issue than it really should be in this particular election, because you don't have to take my word for it, just turn on your TV. That's the biggest thing that the Republican Party has to run on, is the border. After you remove that, well, they sure not going to win on women's health care rights and reproductive. They're not going to win on that. They're not, there's certain other things that they're just not going to win on. They're not going to win with their candidate, their top candidate. So it's this border issue. specific things that I would do about the border. First of all, the border needs to be secure. I think everybody agrees with that. The border needs to be secure. However, I think most reasonable folks, Dems, independents, and most persuadable Republicans also agree that the border needs to be secured. However, there is a humane and a responsible way to do it, and it must be connected with proper immigration reform. So I would secure the border. And mind you, that the bipartisan bill that was blown up, if you will, by President Trump because he needed something to run on would have done that. Secure the border. The second thing is we need some comprehensive analysis, additional comprehensive analysis of what needs to be done down there. We have to have enhanced border security. In other words, not just securing it, but what is the security moving forward? All of the border can't be secured with the wall. We need more Border Patrol agents out there. Some of it's going to have to be patrolled with drones and other non-human resource out there. We can do all of that stuff. After we get the border secured, then we have to look at what the immigration has been, the issue has been, because the crisis is not at the border. The crisis is in Washington, D.C., because they haven't done anything. Both parties have failed at that. I appreciate the president's executive order, President Biden. However, it's little, too late. As soon as you knew they weren't going to do this, you should have did that then. And I think the president could have done a better job, on that. However, we don't give Donald Trump and anybody else a pass either. They all could have done better. We need to revisit a compact with the other nations from which these countries or these immigrants are coming from, and make sure that we have everybody on board and not try to one source it or bear the burden of immigration ourselves. We should not demonize people for wanting to experience the American blessing that we have all experienced. We have to look at the immigration that has happened, increase our immigration courts, hire some more immigration judges, speed up the process. Folks that have been here for decades, and this is all the families and mixed families and blended families, folks that, we have to cut through some of the red tape to make folks that need to be legal documented so that they can continue to become contributors to society, find out what phase or status they're in, create a framework whereby which we try to address as much as possible all of the individual circumstances that people fall into, make the pathway to legal citizenship for folks streamlined for folks that have been here, get rid of all of the extra bombast and bluster that's coming from the right. They're not rapists. They're not. I've been to the border. I've seen children and everybody else out there. And I think there is a way you can do that. And then once we put this stuff in place, then let's enforce the laws that are on the books. If we need to cap the number of immigrants coming in, that's fine. We can do that, but we can do it in a humane and a civilized manner. And also one of the big things, and I could talk about that forever, but we need to address the workforce needs too, because you do have immigrant workers that come over and they just want to work and go back home. They don't want to be U.S. citizens. And so we need to open up another port down there for folks like that to come in and enter and have a better way of managing and monitoring, if you will, our visa programs and all of that other stuff. So there's several things. Oh, and one more thing before I say this. And I believe, I was just down at the Yuma Regional Medical Center a couple of days ago, and I'll say this, and I'll say it very strongly, for these border cities, and we have some in our district, and there's some out there by Tucson as well. The federal government owes these cities, these hospitals, these folks that have had to bear the burden of their ability to act appropriately. We have to make sure that we are taking care of people that have bore the brunt of Congress's ability to enact. And so we need increased support for our border states and our border cities. And we need to look at the impact that congressional inaction has had and make sure we refund these folks some of their money so that we can make sure that they're able to service immigration, because that's the first places that they come to, at these border cities and border states. I have a whole lot more to say about that, but in a nutshell, that's where I would start.
Let's see. Stephen Meisel has a question. Stephen?
Yeah. So first, I don't want to stroke you or anything, but it's a pleasure to hear honesty. So I thank you for that. No spin, and the fact that you're so positive and knowledgeable, which really is quite unique for people running for anything these days. So I thank you for that. My question, the entire conversation, and I understand why, has been about local issues. But I've always focused on Congress people being sent from a local place. Every vote they take has not every, but most have a national implication. So I want to switch, if it's possible, to like to get to understand what your position is on Ukraine and more broadly, your thinking when it comes to our place in terms of our role in the world.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Steve. A great question. And I've always been one, even since I was a young United States Marine. I knew it. There was something about when I put on that uniform that I understood. And for all of the veterans on here, thank you all for your service as well. If there are any on here or family members of veterans, thank you for your service. I understood when they pinned that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor on me as a United States Marine, when I raised my hand and swore in, that I was being sworn in not only to become a part of the world's finest fighting force, the president's own, but I also understood that I was becoming a fabric of what I knew as a young kid from a small, poor family, of what would represent, I was becoming a part of what would represent the leading nation in the world. I recognized that it was every time I shined my boots, every time I ironed my BDUs, every time I put on my dress blues or my Alpha uniform, I knew that I was called to represent the nation that was leading the pack of other nations, the nation that had been put out front to show the rest of the world how democracy should work, how their citizens should be treated, how allies should be supported, how we should represent ourselves, how our leaders should present themselves. And I believe that if former President Trump, and again, I'm not running against him, and he better be lucky I'm not, but I think folks like him should understand that there is a level of decorum and respect and dignity and aptitude and qualification that we always must represent ourselves by, especially if you plan on leading the free nation and leading the nation that is the leader of nations amongst free nations. That's the American role in society. It has always been that. We have always pushed back against communist regimes and folks that have tried to uproot and free nations, such as Russia has done with Ukraine, and things that China has done. I mean, our history is replete against standing up against bullies that have come in and bullied other nations. And I don't think we should lose that luster. I don't think we should ever lock hands with an adversarial force or dictators or people that rule in anarchy. We've never done that, and we should never do that. And so as far as our role in the world, we must do whatever we must do from a congressional standpoint to support a president who I hope and pray every day is Kamala Harris, to elevate her status as the leader of the free world, to stand behind her as a congressional leaders and say, we have to raise our identity as a nation back to the level that it should be, not only by having a person in office that is responsible, that gets it, but having a Congress behind her that will do what's right. That turns me to the issue of Ukraine, which was the first part of your question. We should always, because we have always been and vowed to be a nation that supports our allies. I don't think you don't have to be tremendously smart. I'm not tremendously smart. I guess I'm smart enough, but you don't have to be tremendously smart to understand that what Russia has done to Ukraine is wrong. Just imagine, let's put the shoe on the other foot, that if Canada, we know this is not going to happen, but Canada just decided to come across the border next week and say, we're taking Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, we're going to take what, we just never mind, we're just going to come in, we want the top chunk of the United States. We would expect all of our allies to come to our rescue in areas where we were deficient. If we would expect that of our allies, why should our allies not expect that of us? The strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. We are the big brother for a reason. And I think we should stand locked shoulders with our allies and make sure, Ukraine being one of them in this instance, and make sure that they understand that we don't abandon our friends in the time of war. And so we need to fund. Now, with that being said, we also have to be responsible, because as congressional leaders, we don't just write blind checks. Well, your mama wouldn't just give you money and tell you what to do with it. Your brother, you know what I mean? We all have to be responsible and make sure that we're being accountable to the people we represent, and make sure that we're answering the people's questions concerning the support that we are giving. And that's where congressional representatives have not done a good job with understanding this is where the funds are going. This is the results that we plan on getting back, to make sure that we're getting a return on our investment into our allies. And so again, I can say a lot more about that, but we support our allies, and we need to elevate ourselves back as the leader of the free by not flirting with these extreme nations and folks that are doing all of this in my Blythe language, these crazy stuff these folks are out here doing. And I think we need a president, Kamala Harris, and a Congress with me in it that will make sure that happens, that understands our duty to the world. I hope that answers. That's a big question, but I hope that gives enough of an answer, Mr. Steve.
Okay, Susie Anderson has a question.
Hi, thank you again. I was wondering, I thank you very much to Chester Bokich for putting the demographic information into the chat. That was very helpful. I see you've got about 50,000, give or take, veterans in your district. Are they located in one area? I mean, they come from Vietnam all the way to the Second Gulf War. So, whom do they represent? I mean, where are they? What are they doing? Anyway, I'd just like to know a little bit more about them.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. They are all over the district. We have, I mean, and literally that's the best answer I have. Everywhere we go, we are bumping into, and some of it's very intentional, into veterans across the district. Because of the rural, the further once you get past Buckeye, once you get Tonopah, all of it's very rural out there. That's where you see a lot of, your Vietnam, those era veterans. More of your Gulf War folks, they tend to migrate closer to the city, because they're younger families. But you still have these pockets where they're rural, in the rural areas where a lot of your veterans are there. With that being said, we're seeing them all over the district. We have been making a lot of inroads with veteran organizations. In fact, again, the day after the primary, I was out at the VFW in where was I? Courtside. Was it Courtside? Did I get it right, Kathleen? Courtside. There's little community out there sitting talking with veterans, and a lot of them weren't Democrats, you know what I mean? But when you leave, they leave with that refreshing. And so there was a big thrust. And there are so many specific veteran-related issues out there in the rural counties as it relates to their health care, everything from Yuma to up to Meadview, which is way up north in Mojave. They're having to wait. Some of them, like folks in Yuma, have to go all the way to Tucson to get a medical appointment. Well, we can do better than that. The Veteran Affairs Department, or the Department of the Navy, and I mentioned the Department of the Navy because of the Marine base out there, we can do better with servicing our veterans and our service members out there in conjunction with the Yuma Regional Medical Center. We met with the CEO of the president, vetted a whole lot of ideas that I can't wait to get to Washington to put into play just to service veterans. And there are other issues, folks in Meadview have to go all the way to Nevada. They have to wait 2 or 3 weeks. They don't have doctors out there to travel. And because the district is so large, that's why I said earlier, you just can't have some candidate that's a placeholder, that's positional, but not functional. That's what Paul Gosar is. He's positional, but not functional. You have to be able to see all of the different aspects of what needs to be done to handle with veterans. But they are all over the community, particularly even in Maricopa County, a lot of them that are in some of the retirement communities out in Goodyear and Surprise and Sun City Festival. I mean, they are everywhere, to answer your question, Miss Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely. Chester, you have the last question. Go ahead.
Not so much a question, just as an outro here. Thank you, everyone. Quacy, and it is pronounced Quacy. I got it wrong at first myself. so don't feel bad if you don't know how to say his name. It's Quacy. But Quacy, obviously, an incredible speaker, and I know that Tucson's not in the district, but we really want to get Paul Gosar out of there. Quacy doesn't like to trash his opponent, and I appreciate that about him, but I don't mind it. But Paul Gosar's not a great person, so regardless of whether or not you can vote for Quacy, you can still help out by donating through the website. If you know people in the district, please reach out to them and let them know what we're doing. And I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you all so much.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Quacy, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. I appreciate the opportunity. And you guys
I'm
keep
waiting for that invitation for the cabbage.
for the cabbage. I like that. I like that. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters and we need you on this team. Thank you.